And in 1981, I'd escaped from prison in 1978.
You escaped?
Yes.
How did you do that?
I swam. I was on an island in the Hawkesbury River. I could swim to Brooklyn, which was on the Pacific Highway, hitchhike into Sydney, score some drugs, come back and swim back to the island and no one would even know I was gone.
Hey, I'm Ange.
And I'm Beck.
And we are the Gold Diggers. Because we believe there's gold found in everyone.
Everyone is unique, interesting and exciting with a great story to share.
And we aim to find it.
The question is, can we rise to the challenge and strike gold?
Honey, you're my sugar.
Well, I just feel completely overwhelmed because I do not know how to introduce this podcast. This is a story like I've never heard before. It involves a life of crime, prison, drug addiction. Anything you don't ever want to be involved in but you're intrigued about is probably in this podcast.
It's definitely a podcast with a difference and you're not going to want to miss this one, so make sure you stay tuned.
Honey, you're my sugar.
So this is how it works. One of us knows who the mystery guest is and the other one doesn't. And today it's Ange's turn to find the gold in our mystery guest, Ron Isherwood.
I'm excited about this one.
Yes, well, Ange, I know of this person, but I don't know him personally. But I do have 3 points to give you to know about him. So Ron has overcome drug addiction.
Yeah.
His number 2 is he has a passion for fast cars.
Ooh.
And number 3 is he loves to help people.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes.
Wow. It sounds like both of us are going to be digging for gold on this one.
I think we might be. So let's get Ron in and we will find out more about him.
Looking forward to it. Come on in, Ron.
Woo!
Thank you.
Welcome to the show, Ron. Great to
Thank you very
have you
much.
here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Pleasure.
So glad that you came. And already I know you're man, I'm going to absolutely love having a chat with you because my history is I've helped people with drug addictions. Love fast cars myself and love helping people. So you're in good company, Ron.
Yes. They're good habits.
Yeah. So I'm going to go straight in there in terms of the drug addiction. You obviously had a history of that.
Yes.
And had a victory story over that. But let's go back to like, what was going on for you when that first became an issue?
To start with my story, I grew up in a extremely violent criminal house. My father was a gangster.
Yeah, wow.
A lot of people use that word, but my father was a gangster, real life gangster.
Yeah.
In Australia, we have
In Australia, so it's in Australia.
In Australia, we have a group called the Federal Painters and Dockers Union. They call them the Painters and Dockers. They're from Melbourne, and they're notorious. They kill each other, and it's just an organised crime gang.
Wow.
I was born into that family. By the time I was 16, my father told me school was for idiots.
Yeah.
Education was for people who were stupid. What I needed to know you couldn't be taught in school. So I had a lot of trauma, and I'd been, by the time I was 17, I was in Pentridge charged with 5 attempted murders.
Wow.
I had a shootout with the police, and it was really, but that was normal. It sounds horrible and sounds crazy, but if your dad was a doctor, you'd be sitting at the dinner table talking about an operation that he did where he cut somebody's heart out and put it on the table and fixed it up, and that'd be all normal. I'd be like, oh yeah, that's. If I came along, I'd be like, oh my God, you're talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Where in my home, it was normal.
It was like the culture of your family.
Yeah, my uncles, my aunties, everybody was in organised crime.
So you never kind of felt that other families were living differently to you?
No, everybody was normal. In our world, the only people that came to your house were other criminals.
Yeah, right.
We
And you've
didn't
got
know anyone else.
siblings?
Yeah, I've got an older sister who's 77 yesterday.
Yeah.
Who I absolutely adore. She's my half sister. She was my mother's daughter. I have another sister that passed away from drug addiction. She was 2 years older than me. I have a half brother who died from drug addiction.
Wow.
Who's 30 years younger than me. And I have another sister who's 11 years younger than me. It's quite complicated. My father was molesting my stepsister.
Yeah.
And she had a child to him.
Oh, wow.
And so we had this incredibly secretive upbringing where you don't talk about nothing. My mum pretended to be pregnant, and then she took on my half-sister's child as her child. So it was this whole facade of lies and deceit. And, I wrote a book called Born into the Lie of Crime, because crime's supposed to be principled and, honour among thieves, and it's all bull crap.
Yeah.
It's all rubbish. They're the most selfish, horrible human beings that I've ever met, is that lie of the criminal world. So what happened for me was I started drinking. No one drank in my family. My father didn't drink, so you can't even use that as an excuse.
Yeah.
My dad was really violent, extremely violent. My mum was a tiny woman. He'd physically beat her. He'd physically beat me. He'd beat us all. And so by the time I was 17, I'd gone to prison. I got introduced to drugs in prison.
Yeah.
The government gave me drugs, and they're still doing it today. It's sad to say, and it's the truth, but they're the biggest drug dealers in the world, the pharmaceuticals and things like that. A lot of people begin their addiction through a car accident. Okay, we're going to put you on morphine. Now we're going to let you out of hospital. We're going to put you on endone, which is another derivative from morphine. Now I'm going to over prescribe you this. You're still in pain. Okay, I'm going to over prescribe you. Oh, now I'm addicted to it. Okay, we'll wean you off. I can't. I'm addicted. Okay, let's put you onto something else, which is another form of drug that's going to maintain you.
Yeah.
So I deal with it every day. I just dealt with a client yesterday, the same thing.
Do you mind me asking, what was it that you were in for at 17?
I'd had a shootout with the police.
Wow.
We'd been doing a major break and enter. I was only 17. I was 17 and 3 months. And one of the guys that was with was carrying a 45. When the police came, he started shooting at them. They started shooting at us. But I was also arrested at that time for shooting a couple of other gangsters, which,
And was your father quite high in the world of gangsters?
Yeah. He was up there. He was what we call respected. I call feared.
Yeah.
There's a difference between respect. Today I'm respected.
Yeah.
Those days I was feared.
Yeah, right.
Big difference.
Yeah.
One you earn, one you demand. One you own, one you have on loan.
Yeah.
So my respect today is real. No one can take this away from me. I can never lose this respect. And no matter what somebody else thinks of me, this is my respect. It's called self-worth.
Yeah.
And, that's the gift. It took me a long time to come to terms with the fact that my father preached a set of rules that were a lie. Because it's very conflicting. You're a little boy, you grew up and I was a boxer, my dad was a champion boxer, so I boxed. I just wanted to be my dad's boy. My dad was a criminal, so I wanted to be a criminal. And then all of a sudden, by the time, I didn't know that he'd been molesting my sister until I was about 17. And my other sister told me.
Yeah.
She said, our little sister's really his kid. So she, and it was like, what?
Is that when the
relationship died?
Yeah, where you started seeing him for who he really was?
And I started using, I got out of jail at 19 years of age. My mum passed away of a heart attack, and I started using heroin within 2 months of my mum dying. So it was a really quick, it was in 1974, it was a really quick spiral downhill. My mum was the only person that I'd ever loved in my whole life. Sounds horrible, but in that world you can't love. It's impossible to love. You can't love, because if you love somebody, that's a weakness. You can be got at through that person.
Yeah.
So if I loved you and I come into your place, they can be waiting at your place to kill me.
Yeah, of course.
So
everyone's at risk.
Your girlfriend was a liability. Children were a liability. Friendships were liabilities. So that part of my world was so entrenched in loneliness, fear, false sense of bravado, which is all rubbish.
Yeah. So 19, you get out of prison. Do you then re-enter the family home, or is this your opportunity to make your break?
I re-enter the family home for a very short period of time. My girlfriend, who was with me when I went into prison, she was older than me. she was living at my mum and dad's house. She'd fallen pregnant while I was not works release, whole lot. They leave from the prison, and my little boy was born. And my mum was like, you made the baby, you marry the girl. And was that the old stuff?
Yeah.
She's pregnant, you got to marry her. And, we didn't even know each other.
Yeah.
She was just a woman that I'd met, hooked up with. She fell pregnant. And so we had this child. And when I got out of jail, I had no connection with her. I started drinking, as I said. And then Mum passed away. I started using heroin. And as soon as the heroin came into my life was finished.
So as soon as the heroin started, what did that look like for you?
Well, the heroin, it's going to sound really crazy, the heroin saved my life.
Wow.
Because as soon as I started using heroin, I was kicked out of the underworld.
Okay, that's interesting.
Because criminals can't be drug addicts. Not in the real world.
Yeah.
Not in the real world. In the real world of criminals, the people that are making all the money are not drug addicts. They're organised crime figures.
Yeah.
They're gamblers. They own racehorses. They own massive corporate companies. They're the real Mr. Biggs.
That's really interesting.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. The drug addicts don't make
Well,
money.
they often say, like the drug dealers don't actually use their own supply, do they? So.
Tony Montana said, don't get high on your own supply, rule number one. And it's the truth.
Yeah.
So the minute I became a drug addict, and you got to remember, this is 1974, there was no education. I didn't even know there was such a thing as drug addiction.
Yeah.
So between 74 and 81, I continually used heroin and was in and out of prisons.
And how easily accessible was heroin back then? Was it
back
a known drug?
Yeah, but back then it was simple. There was no customs.
Right.
Wow. Different world.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's mum would get on a plane and fly to Kuala Lumpur, put £5 of heroin in her bag or carry-on and fly home.
Wow.
Wow.
There was no customs. There was no sniffer dogs. There was what we had was what they called border security, but there was no drug squad. There was no federal police investigating.
Yeah, wow, amazing.
It was the 70s.
Drugs, the 70s were open slather.
Yeah, yeah.
And so my life was out of control, completely out of control. Drugs, jail, get out of jail, start using drugs, go back to jail. And in 1981, I'd escaped from prison in 1978.
You escaped?
Yes.
How did you do that?
I swam. I was on an island in the Hawkesbury River.
Wow.
And it was my brain, because it was so drug abused. I was super fit. I've always been a fit person. I've always trained really hard. And I decided that it was only a 6 kilometre swim. I could swim to Brooklyn, which was on the Pacific Highway, hitchhike into Sydney, score some drugs, come back and swim back to the island, and no one would even know I was gone, because the prison officer used to lock himself in a room, and the 70 prisoners that lived on the island would walk around the island all night.
Wow.
I'm suddenly getting pictures of The Rock, the movie The Rock,
exactly.
with Sean Connery come to mind.
Well, it's not
similar.
like that, but it's not. It's a minimum security prison, and the security is the water. So I dived into the water at 11 o'clock at night. I'd been smoking some pot, so I was stoned. And I was going to swim into town, hitchhiking to Sydney, blah, blah. But I forgot about tidal water coming in and out of the ocean. So the tide was coming in. And what I thought was going to take it, an hour, took 6 hours.
Yeah, man.
So by the time I got to the highway, I was already in escapee. They'd already
All the sirens were going off.
Yeah, and I was already in escapee. And, so...
Did they fine you again?
21 days.
Wow.
In King's Cross.
Wow.
Like the area where all the junkies go.
Yeah.
So, of course, that's where I'm going to be. I wasn't escaping to run away. I was escaping to get drugs.
Yeah.
So drugs were such a powerful influence on me. And in 1981, I got a letter from a friend of mine, and he said he'd gone to drug rehab, and he said, if you put half as much effort into getting clean as you do to scoring drugs, you'll be able to get clean. And I thought, not really interested. That's in the old days, you used to know, rehabs were for people that couldn't handle their drugs, and all that tough guy stuff. But he was very clever. He got 3 girls to start writing to me. And girls in a rehab sounded better than transvestites in a prison. It was like, this is a lot more attractive. So I started writing back to these girls, like, oh, yeah, hi,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to come to the rehab, and cut a long story short, I went to the rehab and I stayed there for 10 months. I was bailed to that rehab. And I stayed there for 10 months. I didn't learn much about the disease of addiction or rehabilitation. But what I learned, and this is the greatest thing I've learned my whole life, was I learnt the therapeutic value of one addict helping another. And I got a thing called empathy and compassion. Two things that I didn't know existed. I didn't know what they were. When my mum passed away in 1974, I stood at her grave and tried to force myself to cry because I was so emotionally detached I couldn't cry. I had no empathy because my father had beaten it out of me.
Yeah.
You know, he'd
Well,
taken
it's
away
never
any
modelled to
emotion.
you either.
I'd never heard my father say I love you to my mother, to my siblings, to myself, my whole life. Never heard that word I love you in our house. Mum would say I love you, but I didn't know what she meant.
So how did you get that connection to because you know when you're young, those first early formative years of your life really kind of set in stone the rest of your life in terms of your belief system, your understanding, personality, and that. So how can you suddenly switch on compassion and empathy? What was that defining moment for you?
I tell a story, and it's a true story. I had a friend of mine called Peter. Peter and I grew up together in prison. He was older than me. He came into the rehab. I'd been there about 8 months, so I thawed out. You know, I was no longer drug-induced. I was sober. I was healthy. I was clean. My thinking was pretty good. And he came to me and he said, the cops are looking for me. There was a bad cop called Roger Rogerson. He just passed away. Really evil policeman. Used to kill a lot of people. And he said to me, the cops are looking for me. I'm going to be arrested for a murder charge. He said, I didn't do it. I was with someone and the other guy did the murders. And we were mates. And I said to him, just stay here. And after 3 days, the compulsion got him and he wanted to go. And I remember walking down the driveway with him and I knew where he was going back to. And I started to cry. And that's when something happened. It was a spiritual awakening. My spirit was awoken.
Wow.
And my spirit was awoken. And then if you fast forward, there's a couple of things in my life that really changed my life. I met a girl in rehab in 1981. We have twin daughters, of course. You know, I call them red house romances. Fell in love with the pretty girl, came from a middle-class family. So she would make me better because I come from a low-class family and gangsters, and she came from a middle-class family. So I'd marry her. That would make me a middle-class person. Doesn't work like that. So, it was all wrong. And, I got 41-year-old beautiful twin daughters because of that relationship, so I don't have any regrets. But I relapsed again in 1985.
Sorry, would you mind saying that again?
I relapsed again in 1985. And I was put on a drug called methadone, which is a substitute for heroin.
Yeah.
And this story, I've only started telling this story the last few years because this story is a very personal story. I'd hooked up with a girl I'd met on the streets. She was a working girl. I was ripping people off and we were both using heroin together. We were on methadone. And it was in 1986. And I had a dream. It was I think it was the 1st of March. And I had a dream that I died. And I'm not a religious person. I'm not, I was never believed in religion. I never had any belief system whatsoever. And I died, and because of what we believe in, I was floating upwards. I got to a place, and there was a guy with long hair and a robe on, and I'm there trying to justify my life. Because I'm thinking, I'm in trouble. I've got to get past this guy on the gate. Otherwise, I'm going to the other place,
Yeah.
And I remember just getting there and I was sweating and saying to him, look, I never harmed anyone who was innocent. The people I shot were other gangsters. Most of the robberies we'd done were the people, like the companies were insured. I never harmed innocent people. I kept on going. And he was just there and he was just shaking his head looking at me. And he put this big smile on his face. He said, you don't get it, do you, Ron? And I remember that cold fear. He said, you committed the greatest sin known to man. And I thought, oh my God, I'm in trouble. He said, you wasted the gift of life.
Wow.
So all the things that I thought that I'd done wrong were irrelevant. They weren't on that scorecard.
Yeah.
So I'm up there trying to do the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not, thou shalt not.
Yeah.
And I'd mussed up on most of them. And he just said to me, you just don't get it. And I realised that every day that I was alive, that it's a gift. And that's 38 years. On the 3rd of March, I haven't touched a drug or a drink. So after that dream, I went back into detox, come off 120 milidone, and
So you just kind of went cold turkey?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which they won't let you do anymore.
No.
They won't. That can kill you. That detox can actually kill you.
And what was that like for you?
It's horrific.
Yeah.
You feel like every ounce of your body's dying. It feels like you've got stuff crawling under your skin. You can't sleep. You ache. Your internals ache like you've been electrocuted. But I knew, because I'd been around for 5 years in a 12-step program, that if I stopped using, my life would get better. If I continued to use, my life would get worse.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a smart guy, but I'm not an idiot. And I knew that I couldn't do it anymore. I was at the point where if I couldn't have got clean, I would have killed myself, because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was sick and tired of being a drug addict. I was sick and tired of being a loser. I was sick and tired of not being a good father, a good friend.
So it was that moment where you realised your biggest crime was wasting your life.
Yes.
And that was the motivation to go through it. Wow.
That was the motivation to go through my detox. I detoxed. I went back to work in rehab. I got a job picking old drunks up in a van, driving around the city of Sydney, picking up old drunks who are under bridges that had urinated and crapped their pants, and put them in the back of a truck and take them to detox, and they get washed, and the next night you pick them up in the same place again. And I just started to see the devastation of this horrible thing called addiction and alcoholism. And I'd like to say that I was better from then. But as I said, I had a secondary addiction, which was called crime. I was a career criminal. If my dad had been a doctor, I would have been a really good doctor. If my dad had been a lawyer, I would have been a great lawyer. But my dad was a criminal, and I wanted to be a better criminal than him. And so I always had my one foot in recovery, one foot in crime. And I ended up getting into trouble at 16 years clean. I got back involved with organised crime, and I went back to prison. And it was horrific. Not only did I lose a nice, beautiful, relationship, that I was married to a woman, an American woman, and I had a 6-year-old daughter when I got arrested. But I lost my standing in society, because I'd built this life of being Ron the builder, Ron the jeweler, Ron the nice guy, Ron helping people. And then all of a sudden I was back where I started. It was like, you're just a fraud. That's a horrible feeling, because it doesn't matter what you think about me, it's what I think about me. At the end of the day, it's what I know that really matters. Like, we can all paint pictures that we've got all this wonderful stuff, especially today's social media. We've got all this wonderful thing happening, but if you go home at night and you lay on the pillow and you think, I'm a fraud, I'm a thief, I'm a liar and a cheat, what was all that facade about? What was the nice home and the nice car about? It was nothing. It was, I say it, and I mean this sincerely. I know people who are so poor, all they have is money. They are so poor.
It's a good statement.
Yeah, all they have is money. Because I grew up the last 30 years I lived in Minyama on the water, when Minyama was first going off. And all my neighbours were the wealthy people of the Sunshine Coast. And I don't drink and drug, and they'd come to our place for Christmas or something. Halfway through the night, they've all got a belly full of beer, and they're all whinging about their husband or their wives and how unhappy they are, and how their lives are disgusting. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, like, this is what I envisioned the rich and prosperous people would be. I had this, but my life's been incredibly blessed. As I said, in 2002 I got rearrested. I went back to prison, and I completely changed everything. No more crime, no more lies, no more cheating, no more justifying anything. You can't be half pregnant. You either are or you're not. So I decided I'm not.
Can you make that decision, though? You can make a decision, I'm not going to be involved in crime anymore.
Yep.
But when you're in a family that is so heavily involved in crime, does it come after you, basically?
No. What happened was my father died while I was in prison, which was a nice thing. Sounds terrible.
Yeah.
The only regret that I had that I wasn't there to actually see the grave to make sure he was dead. And that's just sarcastic, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
My sister died while I was just after I got out of prison. She was in active alcoholism and addiction. My little brother died, half brother died while I was in prison. So the family basically died off. I'm still really close to my big sister, and her daughter. I'm still really close to those. And as I said, I spoke to her yesterday. She was 77 yesterday.
Oh.
I call her my little sister. She's my big sister. So I went to prison, and when I was in prison, I started helping people a lot, teaching people about recovery, teaching people how to change their mindset and how to... See, I call the disease of addiction a liar, a thief, and a cheat. We all have that thing in our brain that says, no one knows, just one won't hurt. That liar that says, it says to us, you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not handsome enough, you're not tall enough.
Yeah. We all have that voice.
We have that voice. Now, what happens for addicts, alcoholics, is we believe it.
Yeah.
And we act out on it. And then what we do is we try to take something to shut the voice up.
Yeah.
We all take something to shut the voice up, whether it's food, whether it's sex, whether it's drugs, whether it's gambling. We have a drug of choice, I call it. Doesn't matter what it is. But we're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to numb that pain. There's a lot of different theories these days about addiction being based from trauma. It's a big, broad brush. I believe everyone's got trauma.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are, you've got trauma. So I think that brush is too broad. I'm not saying everyone that's got trauma has got addiction, but nearly everyone that's got addiction has got trauma.
So, obviously you've come out of prison. So 2002, did you say that was?
Yep, I came out in 2012.
And you came out in 2012. And since then you have been helping people, is that correct?
Yeah, completely.
And so what's that look like for you now?
Well, it looks like on a daily basis, I get between 8 and 15 SMS calls every single morning of people telling me why they're grateful.
Wow.
Because I believe a grateful addict won't use drugs. I really believe that.
Yeah.
I believe when we self-implode and because I call addiction, active addiction, a form of self-abuse.
Yeah.
It's sad. I see people, they go, I'm ugly, so I'm going to dye my hair purple and get my ears stretched out and to make people look at me. That's not going to make me more attractive. That's going to make me more unattractive, and it's going to make me hate myself even more. But I'm listening to that disease that tells you that I'm unattractive, so I'm going to prove to it that it's right. Yeah. I tell everybody you can't listen to your own thinking. You really can't. You've got to listen to your heart.
Yeah.
I'm the king of one-liners. I say you've got a head full of spaghetti and a heart of gold. What we have to do is unravel the spaghetti and get the connection between the head and the heart to start talking to each other.
So when did that happen for you? Like, when did you realise what was in your heart?
I've known that for... When my daughters were born 40 years ago, I knew that, but I was too scared because I never had a faith.
Yeah.
I was too scared to let go of the past because I didn't know what a future would be. I have a mentor that I've had for 38 years, and he said to me once, he said, you haven't got God in your life, you haven't got a God. And I said, no, I haven't. And he said, well, how are you going to hand your will and your life over to care of a God if you haven't got one? And I'm like, and he said, you don't trust anything outside of yourself. He said, your best thinking's got you in the trouble you're in. So let's understand that your thinking's not right. And I was like, okay, I can cope with that. I started writing. I love writing. I've written poetry my whole life. For a guy that couldn't read or write when I went to boys' homes, I taught myself to read and write, and I really love words. So I wrote my life story, and that's it there. I brought it in. That's the book there. I wrote my life story while I was in prison this time, and it was very cleansing. Because what it did, it was once you put it on paper, you can't manipulate it. In your brain, you can manipulate it to be pretty and have all the nice bits. But when you put it on paper, you see the warts and all. It's like, okay, this is what happened. And I had to address a lot of stuff.
And from what you said, your education wasn't particularly that great either, was
No.
it? You didn't go to school much. So did you self-taught yourself to read and write?
Yes, I self-taught myself to read and write. Then I did a writing course.
Yeah.
While I was in prison, I did a short story writing course. And the funny part about that was I'm 54 years of age by this stage. And I'm a older student.
Yeah.
And I'm getting 97s and 98s in my course. I'm thinking, wait a minute, I thought I'm stupid.
Yeah.
I've been told my whole life that I'm stupid. My whole life I've been told that I'm useless, worthless and hopeless. And all of a sudden I'm getting 97, 98. So the lowest mark I got was 90, 97.
Wow.
The highest I got was 99. And when I finished the course, I said to the teacher, how come you never ever gave me 100? He said, you would have stopped striving.
Wow. Amazing.
He said, it wasn't that you couldn't get 100. He said, but you'd stop trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I got you, you know. And I realised that when I apply myself to anything in the criminal world, I used to succeed.
Yeah.
When I applied myself to anything in the legal world, I succeed. So it's all about choice.
Yeah.
I'm not a victim. You're never gonna hear me sit down anywhere in the world and say, poor Ronnie, I had this upbringing and I had this and I had that. And that's just the cards I was dealt.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't have the life I had. If I didn't have the father I had and the mother I had and the exes and the children and all that stuff, I wouldn't be who I am today. And I actually don't mind who I am today. You know, it's 99.9% of the time I like me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like faith has played a part in you coming to that realisation.
Yeah, I have a faith, but my faith, I searched looking for a God because I thought that I'd failed the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not steal, fail. Thou shalt not commit adultery, fail. Thou shalt not fail. You know, so I failed the test, and I found out that spirituality's got nothing to do with religion. I went to India, to the ashrams, and learnt to meditate. I then went to Buddhism and had a Buddhist teacher for many years. I then went to Israel and walked the Holy Trail of Jesus. That was a mind-blowing experience. That was only 6 years ago. I did that. That was cool. And I realised that I'm not any of those things. I just believe that love, understanding and forgiveness is my higher power. If I can love and understand and forgive myself and love and understand and forgive other people and carry a message of help without a motive. Because if I give you a lift home because I fancy you, I'm not doing service, I'm doing business.
Yeah.
If I give you a lift to somewhere because you're a carpenter and I need some timber work done on the weekend, I'm not being a good person. I'm doing business. So my motives are really important for everything I do. It's really important. Doing good things for the wrong reasons, not doing good things.
So you talked about gratitude
Yes.
and the importance that is in recovery. And that's been important for you. Is that right?
Yep.
So how do you encourage other people to have that attitude of gratitude?
I told everybody, I used to complain I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet.
Right.
And I literally met a man who had no legs. And it's a true story. In Philippines, he used to be on a board, just a piece of tin with little wheels on it. And he had thongs on his hands. His legs were blown off from some sort of mine. And he used to, good morning, Mr. Ron, how are you, sir? And he used to sell minties and cigarettes, you know, and I don't smoke. So I'd buy a minty off him and I'd always give him a tip. But I never seen that guy upset. And I looked at him and I thought, how can he be so grateful? I went to Sri Lanka and the kids there had old jumpers wrapped up as a soccer ball. And they were laughing and kicking the balls around. My kids were sitting at home with every toy and everything you'd think of, being ungrateful. And I started to realise, wait a minute, it's about an attitude. It's about your mind. And that's when I really started thinking about addiction as a mental health issue. Because it's about your head. It's about what's going on in your brain. It doesn't matter what anyone else tells you. You know, like when I was a young fellow and somebody say, I love you, inside I used to cringe and think, oh, God, how can you even say that? You don't even know who I am. Because I was unlovable. Because I thought I was unlovable. My head told me I was unlovable. And today I'm not unlovable. You know, today I have the most beautiful relationship. I have the most beautiful children. I have the most wonderful friends, you know. And I don't hang around negative people. I refuse to, that's not coming into my territory. I don't allow shoplifters to come into my space. And I say, if you show me your 5 best friends, I'll show you your future.
It's true.
You know, if you're hanging around 5 shoplifters, guess who's going to be the number 6 shoplifter?
Yeah.
You know, you're hanging around 5 successful, loving human beings, guess who's going to be number 6? You know, and I really believe that. I believe we are a creature of habit.
That's true.
I'm a human being first, I'm a man second, and I'm an addict third. Where for the first 50 years of my life, I was just an addict. Everything was revolved around, oh, you can't use, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this. And I was a criminal. So I always felt like a fraud, even though I justified it and, you know, all the rubbish in the world. You can justify anything you like, but the bottom of the line is that I was ripping myself off from having the best version of myself. And that's what it's all about. It's about being a better person than me. Today, the only person I'm in competition with is me. And I'm grateful that people trust me with their lives. You know, I get messages every other day just about. I had a lady, she's a lawyer from Perth. She sent me a message 2 days ago, and I actually posted on my social page, and she was 12 months sober. And she goes, you know, thank you, Ronnie, for coming back and coming into my life, and because of you, I'm a year clean. And I said, no, it's because of you. I plant seeds. I don't do nothing. I plant seeds. I tell you what to use, what time to water, and what you need to nurture. It's up to you whether you do the gardening.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, don't give me that responsibility. It's too much.
Yeah.
You know, that's God's job. That's not mine.
I think, though, sometimes it just takes one encourager, somebody that can believe that there is a future for them beyond addiction.
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you for having faith in me.
Yeah.
I get that nearly every day. I get that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having faith in me. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for helping me believe in myself. The reason I do my podcast is to carry a message of faith, hope, and that there is a way out. There is a way out. There really is. Look, if I can get clean, and I can stop crime, and I can help people for the right motives, anyone can do it.
Yeah. So I see you've got your book, and you mentioned a podcast. What's your podcast?
My podcast is called The Truth About Addiction.
Yeah.
My book's called Born into the Lie of Crime. It's pretty scary if you want to look at it. The honest truth is, that's a photo of me as a 14-year-old boy holding a machine gun. That's in my mum's kitchen. And they couldn't be more proud. And I'm wearing a tailor-made suit, handmade shoes. You know, my dad was proper criminal. You know, not some guy who's like got drunk down the pub and beat someone up. You know, and that's my charge sheet as a little boy. That's quite embarrassing. It's shoot with intent to murder 2 times, shoot with intent to murder, shoot with intent to murder. This is all in 1 year. Wow. It was quite
Was some
crazy.
of your poetry in there? Any of your poetry?
No, none of my poetry's in there. We're writing a second book. The second book's going to be nice.
Yeah.
The second book that I'm writing now is going to be nice. This was the story that I had to write so people could understand who Ron Isherwood was.
Yeah.
Then they can see who Ron Isherwood is today.
Yeah.
Because if I just wrote the book about who I am today, they would go, well, so?
Yeah.
Lots of people are nice people.
Yeah. I love the fact there's a part 2 to that story.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the end of the story.
No, it's just the beginning. That story finishes in 2002 when I got arrested.
Yeah.
And then from then on, I like part 2. I enjoy part 2. I like, as I said to you before, I like me today.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, there has been times where temptation has got in the way, you know, but I haven't acted out. Where somebody will make me an offer that's too good to be true, and it's like, no.
Yeah.
No, I'm not prepared to. I'm not going to sacrifice what I have today.
Yeah.
I'm not prepared to lose the way I feel, the way I think, the way I act, because of unfounded selfishness or unfounded fears. Because they're not real fears. I'm financially secure.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need to make money. I didn't even need to make money last time I committed a crime.
Yeah.
It was just the bullshit of ego.
Yeah.
Excuse my French, but it was just the rubbish of ego.
Yeah.
Like, I've still got it. I'm still the man, you know. And someone came to me and asked me to help him. And that helping somebody got me 18 years. I got sentenced to 18 years for helping somebody. And, and that guy completely betrayed me. You know, the whole time I was in prison, none of my ex-crim mates stuck by me. You know, there's no loyalty amongst these. There's no honour amongst these.
Was the prison time for you, was that kind of almost like a respite from life?
Yeah. I'll tell you what it was. It was a reboot.
Yeah.
I shut the computer down, reprogrammed it, and said, okay, who do you really want to be? What are you prepared to do to be who you want to be? And what are you prepared to do to maintain it? Because the maintenance is the hardest part with everything.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, I have really nice cars, but you've got to maintain them. If you don't maintain them, it doesn't matter how nice a car they are.
Yeah.
They're gonna fail. You know, one day you've got to start it and the battery won't be charged, or the tyres will be flat. Or even worse, if you abuse it
Yeah.
and you put rubbish fuel in it. And I believe putting bad thoughts is rubbish fuel.
Yeah.
If I put down negative, destructive, dishonest thoughts, that's bad fuel.
Yeah.
And that's going to end up by making me blow the motor up or
Yeah.
blowing the
It's a
gearbox
good way
up.
of looking at it. I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
You know, because I'm a mechanically person. When I came home this time, I opened a company called Sugarman Classics, and we built some incredibly beautiful classic cars, Corvettes. Then we started. I've always owned a jewelry company. I love jewelry. I'm obsessed with jewelry.
Yeah.
I've dealt with diamonds and gold and high-end watches my whole life. I was actually a jewelry thief. That's what my crimes.
But now you do it honestly.
Yeah, but I've been doing it honestly for 40 years.
You knew what to look for.
Yeah, I know exactly what to look for. Yeah, as soon as I meet somebody, I evaluate. Oh, okay, yeah, I check all their rings out. I do. I'm
Yeah.
horrible, but it's a natural thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, I just got offered a diamond the other day to sell for a client. You know, and I'm so blessed. Like here, I'm supposed to be this bad guy, but I've got a client who's trying to get me to sell a diamond for them. Here's the valuation, $940,000.
Wow.
Wow.
You know, like you don't give someone that sort of trust if you're not worthy of it.
Yeah.
Now, people that got that money aren't stupid people.
Yeah.
I say to people all the time, you know, please don't insult my intelligence. One thing I can't stand is people that think we're stupid, because we're not stupid. You know, we don't get to where we are today by being stupid people. We do some stupid
Well,
things.
in the world of crime, you learn to read people extremely well, don't you?
100%.
Yeah.
And,
So,
and to be honest, it was spot on what you said then. I've survived. I'm 70 in a few months, and I've survived that long through my wit.
yeah.
Being able to read the situation, read the room, pick who's the threat, pick who the asset is, who the liability is.
Yeah.
You know, that's how you survive.
Yeah.
And the same as in business. You know, I run my business the same as I run my companies, with honesty, open-mindedness, acceptance, reliability, congruence, thoroughness and consistency. They're the 8 demands that I run my whole programs on. And if you can run those 8 demands in your life and act upon those demands, you have an incredibly successful, even in relationships. If you're open and honest with your partner, you have a great relationship.
Yeah.
If you're accepting that sometimes, you know, I don't have to be right. I can just be happy. I don't have to be right all the time. Where years ago, my ego was in the way. I had to be right. Today, it doesn't
That is
matter.
just such a simple truth, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't have to be right. I just have to be happy.
Yeah, it is. It's true.
Yeah.
Because it used to be so important to be right once.
That's right.
It's not relevant.
Sometimes just let it go.
It's
Just
not
be
relevant. It's not
happy.
important. It's really not important to be right. Like, and what is right?
Yeah.
You know, what's right for you mightn't be right for me. But the gift of giving is the greatest gift I've been given. The enjoyment I see in other people, I see the light switch go on. I see people's eyes, because, you know, the eyes are the window to the soul, is what they say and all that. But I see people in early recovery struggling, confused, lost, and afraid. And then I see this little thing switch in their head, and I see them get a thing called hope. Then they start to get faith. Then they get trust in themselves.
Yeah.
And then, you know, a year down the track, they're saying, oh, I'm thinking about opening my own company. You go for it. Don't let fear stop you. You know?
So I guess my last question to you then is no one outside of that hope, in terms of no one's so far gone that they can't come back?
The only people that can't change are people who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. And there are some unfortunates who were born that way. They're not at fault. That's
Yeah.
the truth. There are some people who are, and I met them in prisons,
Yeah.
that are constitutionally incapable of being it. That's a mental health issue.
Right.
And that's way beyond making decisions. That's way beyond having 12-step programs. That's way beyond medications. Those people are usually medicated so hard that we have like liquid lobotomies, their vegetables. And some people need to be on that. I hate to say it. But we have some people that are very defected, and I've been in prison with a lot of those people. And, you know, they're very dangerous and, you know, not very nice people. I don't know if there's anywhere to blame or anyone to point a finger at, but the reality is that's the truth. And there's some people that I won't let near my home. I wouldn't want them near my home. I just don't want them to be. I don't want them to be my neighbour. That's not being judgmental, that's being honest. But that's a minority. It is a minority.
Yeah.
I think anyone that wants it can get clean.
Yeah.
Anyone that's prepared to be honest, first of all, you have to own it. If I say to you, oh, that's a beautiful Porsche over there, it's got a flat tyre, and you go, yeah, it's a nice Porsche, and I walk past an hour later and it's still sitting there. And I say, geez, that Porsche's still sitting there, and you go, yeah, the truth of the matter is it's mine. All of a sudden you've owned it. I say, well, why have you changed the tyre? I don't know how. Come, I'll show you. And I open up the boot, and the boot's in the front, not where the engine is. It's like, wow, I didn't know the boot was there. That's a jack. That's a wheel brace. Now I've showed you how to change the tyre. You never have to have a flat tyre again.
Yeah.
You get a flat tyre, but you can change it. But you have to be prepared to say, that's my Porsche.
Yeah.
Until you said, yes, my Porsche, we can't fix that.
Yeah.
So that's what it's all about. It's just admitting.
Yeah.
Admitting
being
that
honest.
I have a problem. Once you admit you have a problem, we can address the problem.
Yeah.
And I think recovery's
great.
fun.
Yeah. That's great.
Well, Ron, you've certainly come a long way in your life, and I think we're ready for some gold, Ange.
I know. I don't even know where to start, Ron. There's just this story is like, it's almost unbelievable
It's true.
to go from where you were to where you are. And it's not a story we come by very often. And what I find remarkable is that the future for somebody that grew up the way you did was that you shouldn't be sat in this chair right now. You'd either be in prison or you'd be dead.
Yeah, 100%.
So you've absolutely broken the mold, which is coming out of a crime family is such a difficult thing to do. I've watched all the movies, so I know. No, but coming out of that world takes a lot of strength and resilience. But what I love about your story is that there was no compassion or empathy in your upbringing till you were an adult, and you had to be intentional about opening your eyes to a different world, putting yourself to see from a different perspective in order for your life to change. And it was that intentional step that you took to say, when you had that person say to you that you've wasted your life, that's the biggest crime, and be prepared to open yourself up to see life in a different way has changed your life. And I love the fact that gratitude is a daily thing for you, and how you talked about all the different people that you've witnessed around the world, and you're pulling out things of gratitude, things to show that, there are always people doing it tougher than us. And it has changed your life. It's changed who you are. It's changed the influence that you're having on other people. And that, to me, is the most courageous thing you've ever done in your life, is to put yourself and purposely open your eyes to a different way. And I think your life is the richer for it. You're more influential for it. You're more blessed because of it. You live in a much more settled world because of it. And your story is going to encourage, and has encouraged and influenced many people to see life in a different way, and to champion people that are in the depths of the bottom of hell, if you like, to see that life can change if you just believe in yourself. So I'm amazed, and congratulations on a life well lived.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Incredible
Thank you.
story. Hey,
Yeah.
Ange. It's been such a privilege to have you on the show today, Ron, and thank you for sharing your story so openly and honestly with us as well.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great to get to know you. And how can people get hold of your book?
The book's on my webpage called thetruthaboutaddiction.com.au. Just go there and you just buy it straight off there. You can buy it through Amazon and that stuff, but it's a lot easier to go through the webpage. And if you go through the webpage, I sign it off to people, and
Beautiful.
just say good luck or whatever you want me to write, I'll write in it.
And your podcast is available as well?
Podcast, there's 100 episodes coming up to 100th episode next week.
Wow.
with the next prison officer.
Wow.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
This is a weekly podcast, is it?
Yeah, it's a weekly podcast. Yeah.
Awesome.
So the next week's coming out with a lady called Mel Watson. She was an ex-prison officer. Yeah, she's an advocate for child sex abuse.
Yeah.
It's a really good podcast. Most of my podcasts are people that I like.
Yeah.
People that I want this story told because I believe in it, you know?
Yeah. Great. So thanks again for being with us, and check out Ron's
Thank you very
podcast.
much.
So that's it for today's podcast. You'll find us on all the major podcast platforms. The podcasts come out every Wednesday. We'd love to hear from you on our socials, the Gold Diggers Podcast. Tell us about your story so we can find the gold in you.
Easy as pie, lemon, apple or cherry. Loving you is so very sweet, sweet, sweet. How can it be such a piece of cake? And your smile is the icing. Loving you is a party. Honey, you're my sugar.